Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next talk in the Data Science Track, PyCon 2020. My name is Tamara Thunqvist, and I will be coordinating this talk. In this talk, we will hear Jyotika Singh, who is a Director of Data Science at ICX Media. Jyotika's talk is pre-recorded, so we start with that, and after that, take the Q&A session. And please don't forget to ask your questions in the comments to this video. Okay?
Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to be speaking at Sweden this year. There have been some wonderful talks today, and I hope everybody is having a great time, just like I am. Before I begin, I would like to thank everyone who is here today for my talk and all the organizers and volunteers at PyCon Sweden for making it possible and giving the opportunity to connect with the Python community, especially in these times we are in this year 2020. So I'm going to be talking about identifying trends and influencers via YouTube interactions. And before I dive right in, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jyotika Singh. I work as a director of data science at i6 Media, which is a Washington, D.C. based audience intelligence company. Here I've attached my LinkedIn, Twitter, and GitHub accounts. I will be posting the link to my presentation on Twitter after the talk. And also in case any of you are not able to ask the questions after this talk or on Slack and have anything that you would like to ask later, please feel free to reach out on Twitter. I've also attached my GitHub account here. And primarily the reason is that when I'm working to solve for a problem that I do not find open source tools for that already exist, I do clean up my code and push it into projects on my GitHub account in the aims to contribute to the open source community. So if there's somebody who's trying to solve the similar problem that I am, they can hopefully leverage my findings. So jumping right in, this presentation will cover talking about YouTube data, specifically the kinds of data that we can get from YouTube and how we are able to fetch this data. So really using the YouTube data API and then combining it all with some natural language processing, that is NLP. And that will finally lead me to walking through an example of an analysis that I did on YouTube data crawled from the API using some statistics and natural language processing. So by now, I have already used the term NLP twice in this presentation. So I wanted to just take a minute and go over what NLP is so we are all on the same page. NLP stands for natural language processing, and the definition has been evolving over the years. However, today, it basically means computer manipulation of natural language, where natural language can be a spoken language or how people write, so like text. And it can range from something as basic as counting word frequencies to something like Alexa or Google Home, where you're speaking to a device and the device is able to answer questions and actually give you response based on what you are saying to it. So natural language processing tasks really vary. A lot of languages spoken in the world, and sometimes it's even hard for humans to understand the meaning of a sentence. Something like, I am excited to be going, and so is John. So does that mean I am going and both John and I are excited about it, or both John and I are going and we are both excited about it? So you see, it can be tricky for humans. So it's definitely tricky for machine as well. There are very few rules that govern how somebody speaks or somebody types. As you know, there are a lot of abbreviations some people like to use. And that is also ever evolving, right? Human language, like LOL, was not much in existence 20 years ago. So we see these things definitely evolve with time. So coming over to social media, People use social media platforms globally from around the world. People watch content, people post. As far as APIs for the social media platforms go, and the good documentation or the ability to access data goes, there are not many that have a good amount of data that we can collect and perform NLP on. But YouTube is one where there is good amount of API documentation and data available for analysis. So this presentation will be focused highly on YouTube. In one thing to note would be, whenever you're trying to use the YouTube API, just be sure that you're using all the data and the API in compliance with their terms and services. So on YouTube, as you know, people watch videos, people comment on videos, people like videos, and every video has certain text fields attached to it, such as the title, description, their tags. And also, when people are engaging with YouTube content, they are commenting on the content. There's the comment text that is also that can be seen on YouTube. And what can be seen on YouTube typically can also be collected via the API or via API requests. So we see there is a good amount of text data that we anticipate being available from the YouTube API. And where there's text, there is the possibility of NLP, doing natural language processing. And we know that is challenging. So why won't it be challenging on YouTube? Well, it definitely is. And it stems from the fact that people have different styles with which they write. Uh, People speak different languages. And also, significantly. So, from educational videos, documentaries, to entertainment, movies, to people making gaming videos, vlogs, from something that can potentially use a lot of formal language to completely informal language. So, there comes an added layer of diversity in terms of the text that we can see on YouTube, stemming from the fact that it represents a variety of topics. So, one such example of a potential challenge is right here. So, I have some YouTube comments that you can see on the screen, and we see how some people like to communicate just using emojis. Some people like to communicate using text as well as emojis. Case sensitivity is no rule, so people can use all caps or all lower letters. People use different languages and abbreviations, and also sometimes not very standard abbreviations. For example, ESY for EASY. So it totally depends on the writing style of an individual making a comment. So we can see it is challenging to build a tool that takes into account all these variety of challenges that we have. But remembering that where there are challenges, there is always potential. So because there are all these different kinds of text that we have on YouTube, different languages that people use, emojis, uh, there can be a lot of thought put into the kind of natural language processing analysis one wants to do. And particular use cases as examples would be storytelling. If you want to check trends for your favorite basketball player or football player, and you want to see people creating content about the particular player or a particular topic, we can compare trends over time for different time frames. Uh, it just we can tie all the analytics and statistics attached to videos such as view counts, like counts, comment counts, and tie it all into a story and identify trends from data. Another very important point that I feel is a big advantage is doing mass analysis. So a human is limited in the capacity of how many videos we can watch and analyze a lot more than n. Now, it's a question mark because it really depends on your rate limits, because every API token you generate has a rate limit. So you can't just fetch all the data onto your machine. There are restrictions there. and also depends on the operation that you're performing. But a machine definitely has the ability to learn from a larger scale. Uh, so this is a particular advantage of fetching data from the YouTube API and doing some sort of analysis. Requests that can be made, a great web explorer as well if you just want to try particular requests without having to go through the process of registering a project and generating an API key. So it's really great, and I'm attaching some links in the description and generate a token, and there you go. Once you have the YouTube API is similar to the experience you have when you're actually using YouTube in a browser. So if you, let's say you have a search term and you want to search for something, you type it in the search bar and hit enter, and you get all these snippets of uh, videos or channels that are relevant to your keyword that you searched for. And in that, you see, you don't see all the expanded full description of the video. It's just a little sneak peek. You see the thumbnail, you see the title, you see truncated descriptions, and that's what you see also with the API. So if you want to search for videos or channels using the API, you can make a search term. The point to note there is that it does not contain a full amount of data, just like how it does not when you're searching it on the web. And anytime you want to see further details of a video, you have to click on the video, and actually then look at the description and expand the text and see all of it. So similarly on the API, once you do a search and you have a list of videos that returns, you can always make separate video details requests to get additional data, such as all the text fields and all the statistics related to a video, such as the title description, tags, category, and the views, likes, dislikes, comments. Similarly, for a channel, you would want to make separate requests to get additional text fields and statistics. And similarly, if you want to get comments on videos, that is also a separate request via the API where you can get text and stats on comments. And these are not all inclusive requests that can be made using the YouTube API, but definitely that return a good amount of text data and statistics to do any sort of analysis using NLP. Using the YouTube API also has some gotchas, and like I mentioned earlier, it's a rate limit. Every token or the API key that you generate has a daily limit, and every request that you make has a certain cost to it. So you can continue to make requests till you reach your daily limit, and then the limit sets the very next day. So it's something to keep in mind if you're running a long running request, and you want to be just sure that you're not exhausting your key, because after that it's going to stop returning data. Another on a video that has disabled comments, it's actually going to throw an error if you're trying to make that request via the API. There's several ways you can interact with the YouTube API, and I think the best way to get started would be to use the API Web Explorer. It's great for trying out any request that you really are interested in. You can also build your own Python code using API documentation examples. I have attached a link right there. I think their documentation is very great if you want to build something of your own. There are also some open source tools that can be helpful, some wrappers of the YouTube API that I've attached here. And I want to bring up one of my personal projects, by YouTube Analysis, where it's not a wrapper on top of the YouTube API, and it's a work in progress project. But essentially, for a particular keyword, a particular type of search I want to run, time windows of search, It will run and in just one script get the video details, also the comment details, collect all the text data and statistics that can be used for analysis. So really pointed requests and pointed for getting text and statistics. In addition, it has some additional NLP features where if you pass in a list of strings, it's going to run location detection analysis and extract all the detected locations from the list of texts and return it back to you with the count. It also has the ability of error handling. So like I shared previously, if you're trying to fetch comments on a video that has disabled comments, it throws an error. And that can be a bit tricky if especially you are trying to run requests in a loop where you have a big list of video IDs and you want to fetch comments. And then if even one video ID has disabled comments, your script will error out. And that can be that can be such and you're running a request in a loop. It's just going to let you know that this happened, but continue execution. Rate limit handling is something that I have sitting in a branch. I just need to do some cleanup there and push it, which will basically tell you if you've run out of limits, so you know, well, that has happened. Moving on to natural language processing. And as it pertains to the data that can be collected from YouTube. So if you just are interested in some sort of a keyword analysis to see what kind of phrases occur on YouTube videos, a great easiest way would be to check these fields as they exactly return from the API, such as tags, categories, and topics. Tags are keywords that the video creator attaches to their content. So they really capture the context of the content. And it's great if you just want to do something like a tag analysis to see what content is really about. Uh, and then the categories and topics are more categorical level information on videos. So if you want to go further high level and just look at the categorization of videos, these are great fields. And I think these fields can be directly used without much added analytics on top of it to fetch information out. But if you want to go beyond that, I think there's several things that can be done. And one common practice that I want to mention while doing NLP is stop words removal. So words that you don't necessarily know what the text is about, but really these words are needed to just join your sentence and make it grammatically sound right. So they don't really tell you about the context of the text itself. And removing stop words before doing any text analysis is a very common practice that I wanted to point out. Additionally, something like name entity recognition, for which there are great tools out there, and I have linked them in a future slide. But it basically takes in text and identifies things like organizations, names, locations, and it can automatically identify that from text and tell you what is a person, what is a location, and so on. I would say there are a lot of other things that can be done, like key phrase extractions. If you don't want to use tags, you want to go further into the title and description of the video and do key phrase extraction from there. Very well, there are tools for that as well that I've linked in the next slide or so. There are unigrams, bigrams, trigram analysis as well, which just takes the unigrams takes one word and gives you a distribution of that. Bigrams take two word combinations and see if they're like co-occurrences, and similarly with trigrams. There are a lot of other things like sentiment analysis, language detection that are possible, and I have linked tools that can be helpful to go into these in the next slide. There are a lot of possibilities here, and that would take a separate talk of its own to talk about everything. But one always on option is also, if you don't find anything that has tools, you can always build your own model. If you have your data set, and you can use feature extractions, there are great libraries to do that for text, and then choose your own machine learning model and build it. Here's the promised tool slide for different kind of problems that you may be trying to solve. And I've linked these and some more in a resource slide that I have in the end for anything that you may want to refer to. Uh, for example, name entity recognition. There are features in both NLTK and Spacey that you can use to do an analysis like that. And so it's really a massive list of tools that can be explored. Moving on to using all that we have spoken about and actually doing an analysis using YouTube data. And I was thinking of a good topic and I landed on travel. So, travel in 2020 has been interesting and has been severely impacted due to COVID. So I pulled some data from the web or just general search trends. So, people searching for flights, and we see there's a pattern here where everything looks pretty good, and then March happens, and then there's a pattern that comes sliding down in terms of the trends. This chart specifically talks about the flight searches from within US. I also have a chart right here which talks about flight searches, domestic as well as international, from Sweden. And we see it's a similar sort of trend where March happens and then all of a sudden there's like this dip down, and we see the kind of same trend here. We can see even hotel searches have been impacted. So things were fine in most of the places till February, and then something happens in March, and the trend goes significantly down. So, given all that we have seen, the charts that we've seen on the web, what I wanted to do is search for videos related to travel vlogs on YouTube and do a similar analysis and see what kind of trends show up there for 2020. So, travel vlogs are quite popular on YouTube, and they're specifically useful if you are ever thinking of taking a trip somewhere and you want to see people's experiences and take suggestions for what kind of places you want to visit and so on. So, it's big on YouTube for sure. So I collected some videos on a yearly basis, and I wanted to see their statistics. So views, likes, comment counts on the videos, and you see the trends. YouTube is getting more popular year after year, so we see more engagement, more views, more likes, more comments, all the way till 2019. The trend is going upwards, and then suddenly 2020, everything comes down. Now, if I compare month over month for 2019 versus 2020, we see there is a very significant difference from how those 2 years look like. And 2020 does seem to have taken a good amount of fall for the kind of engagement that we are seeing on travel vlogs related content. Additionally, what I wanted to do was to see this 2019 versus 2020 difference and plot the shift in video engagement. So the travel search charts that we saw earlier also had the y-axis that represents shift from 2019 versus 2020 month over month, and that's what I have here as well for video engagement. And we see consistently, as we expect, after February things began to change. So putting this together with the flight search collected from the web, we see there is a very strong correlation with what we are observing on YouTube in terms of people engaging with travel related content and actually people searching for flights to travel. So while there are trends that we can clearly see, but there are still content that people are creating now that are relating to travel, and people are still engaging with that. So in the last 2 to 3 months, what are people really talking about in videos, in travel vlogs that are being produced? So I did a word cloud analysis for keywords that are extracted out of text, and we see things popping up like beaches, hiking, road trips, people talking about COVID and travel during COVID-19, doing virtual tours, walking tours, and lockdown. So we see there's a big a lot of what we are actually seeing is also representing on YouTube in terms of the content. So in terms of all the content that has been popular and getting a lot of traction in the last 2 to 3 months, there's some of these channels that are pretty much gathering a lot of views and engagement. And they're channels where 4K walk, where people are taking tours all over Europe and America and recording their experience. A lot of beach content has been pretty popular in the last 2 to 3 months. Some people traveling all over India to mainly places like hill stations, activities like camping, not really big cities where there are more significant impact of COVID, and then other videos where people are traveling all over Europe. Now, people are interacting with all this content as well. So I wanted to see if people are actually mentioning locations in their comments. And I found a lot of them. So people are really commenting about all these different locations. There's USA, India, London, Japan, Germany, Switzerland, and a lot more of these locations that I'm seeing pop up in people's comments. And to take a deeper look, here's an example of some comments. People are curious about COVID tests. Some places require you to have a prior COVID test before you can enter. Especially, I have one example here in the US. There is a state, Maine. If you want to visit that state from anywhere outside, you need a negative PCR COVID test result to go. Even globally, places like Dubai are open for tourism now, but then they want you to have a negative PCR COVID test 3 days prior to your flight. People are also talking about locations that they want to visit. They can't wait for the lockdown to be lifted so they can travel, and all sorts sort of comments. So I got all of this analysis using a Pi YouTube analysis. I pulled videos statistics data for different years like 2016 to 2025. Then I've also used word cloud generators to give you that word cloud sort of a view of the locations and what kind of key phrases people are using in their content relating to travel blogs. Here is the promised resource slide. I've added links to it, and I've put it here for your reference. Finally, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and being a part of this talk at PyCon Sweden this year. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
so much for such an interesting talk.
Thank you very much. I really
So,
appreciate it.
I do not see any questions yet. I just want to remind everyone that you have this chance to ask questions. So please use it. And while we're waiting for the questions from the audience, I have a question. So is it possible to collect this data from YouTube playlists?
Oh, yes. So actually, that is possible. And like in my presentation, I pointed out that the search from the API works very much similar to how the experience is when you're using YouTube in a browser. So if you want to search for playlists in a browser, there is, when you enter some keyword in the search bar, you can always filter the results to only show you playlists. So similarly, YouTube API also has that capability where you can specify the type of request or the type of results you want returned, whether it's like a video type or a type channel, type playlist. And all of this can also be done using the library that I use for my analysis, which is PyYouTube Analysis, which is my work in progress. It has a type input field that can be used where you can specify whether you want to be looking for videos, playlists, channels, and then get data respective to that.
Okay, thank you. So it means also that you can get this data from like particular YouTube channels.
That is correct, yes. And again, going back to one slide where I had where you can search for content, and then if you need more details, you can get more details for videos, for channels, for playlists. Similarly, if you already have a channel in mind that you want to get data about, all you would need is just the channel ID, which can be found in the URL of the channel on YouTube. Using that, you can just make a regular channel details request and fetch data about the channel that you are interested in. Hey, Tamar, can you?
Apparently, we have some problems with the network. I couldn't hear what you. Could you please repeat the answer on the last question?
Sure. So on the channel, like getting access to channels data for a particular channel, yes, that is possible. And just like how if you are going through the search process where you're searching for a keyword and then getting channels and then getting channel details, but if you already have a channel that you are interested in fetching details of, you can very much do that. All you would need is the channel URL. In that, there is a channel ID, which can be used to make detailed requests for a particular channel.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for the talk. I think we finish here.
Cool.
Thanks so much,
That's great.
Jyotika.
Thank you so much, Tamara, for all your help, and thank you for everybody to tune in.